We've seen many players over the years in the NBA strike fears onto other teams and players. This can be due to their dominance on the court on the defensive end or the offensive end, players talking trash to get under your skin, or hell, even some players who start a fight mid-game. But in this video, I'm going to be going over the most intimidating players to play in the NBA. Cue the intro. Our first player, we got Ben Wallace. Ben Wallace was an absolute menace on the defensive end. Let me just read you out some of his accolades. 4-time Defensive Player of the Year, 6-time All-Defensive Team, 2-time Rebounding Champ, 1-time Block Champ, 4-time All-Star, and a 5-time member of the All-NBA team. All of these achievements, and Ben has never even averaged 10 or more points per game. Just shows you what a defensive menace he was. During his time with the Pistons from 2000 to 2006, Ben Wallace was the absolute last player you want to see hanging out in the paint waiting to block your shot, as it felt like he always got a block when his team needed it most. He was also the player who basically started the Malice at the Palace in 2004 when his Pistons faced off against the Indiana Pacers. I'm sure most of us are familiar with this, but if you're not, this is undoubtedly the biggest fight in NBA history, and you could search it on YouTube if you want to see the whole thing. But it all started with Ben Wallace shoving Ron Artest, who's another player who could have made this list, after a foul when the game was basically over in the last minute. The whole thing escalated from there, and Ben got a 6-game suspension, which honestly wasn't even that bad compared to the others. But Ben Wallace always had that mean look to his face, as he played with that mentality of never letting his opponent score. He has got many historic clutch blocks that seemed almost impossible, and even though he wasn't the best offensive player, he would sometimes show glimpses of his athleticism and even throw a few posters in his career. The Hall of Famer is one of the most intimidating players of all time, as he was never afraid to get in other team's face and play top-notch defense for the entirety of the game with that mean look always on his face. Our next player, we got Kevin Garnett. The big ticket, Kevin Garnett, just like Ben Wallace, was one of the most feared players in the NBA during his time, as he was one of the best defenders in the league and was a very efficient scorer as well. And when it came to making friends on the court, Kevin Garnett was the absolute last player to be like that. Garnett was kind of like how Draymond is of today, talking trash, playing elite defense, and doing anything to get under his opponent's skin. But KG was also the best player on the court most of the time. Not only did Garnett have that distinct mean look on his face, but he would talk trash to anybody, including Steven Adams of all people. Or Joakim Noah, who looked up to KG before coming into the league, and KG talked trash to him the first day they met on the court, and the beef is still going on to this day. Or the time he talked about Carmelo Anthony's wife in game, and Carmelo was waiting for him after the game on the team bus. KG has many more stories of his trash talk, but when you add that plus his Hall of Fame career on the court, Kevin Garnett was one of the most intimidating players of all time and takes a well-deserved spot on this list. Next, we got Kobe Bryant, the Black Mamba. Kobe wasn't really known for his trash talk that much, even though he did have some moments, but Kobe was more feared what he would do to you on the court, as he was always able to get a basket when he needed one most. And with Kobe's work ethic and bag of skills, teams and players always knew what they were going up against. Like that one time in 2010 when his Lakers faced off against the Orlando Magic, and Kobe and Matt Barnes were going back and forth for a bit on the court, even receiving double technicals. But on an inbound pass a few minutes later, Matt Barnes was inbounding the ball and faked the pass right in Kobe's face, and Kobe didn't move an inch and kept a smile right on his face. Kobe was really out of this world when it came to intimidating players. He also mentioned he had one more ring than SHAQ after his 5th ring in 2010, and you know that had to sting for SHAQ, as he had 4 rings and all that beef and trash talk beforehand. Or that time in 2009 when his Lakers took a 2-0 lead in the finals against the Orlando Magic, and Kobe looked unhappy after the game at the post-game press conference. The reporter asked him, "Why are you frowning? Why are you not happy after a big win?" Kobe replied, "Job's not finished." Is the job finished? I don't think so. Talk about Mamba mentality right there. Compare that to Clay saying to LeBron, I guess his feelings got hurt after the Warriors went up on the Cavs 3-1 in the 2016 finals, and the rest was history. Two completely different mindsets, and Kobe was just an absolute assassin on the court and was never satisfied until the job was finished. Next on this list, we got LeBron James, the King. LeBron is undoubtedly one of the best players to play the game of basketball, but is he one of the most intimidating? I believe he is, as even though LeBron is one of the nicest and friendliest players to play the game, he's also one of the most dominant with his play on the court. Standing at 6'9", 260 pounds, nobody wants to see LeBron running down the court your way on the fast break. Just ask Jason Terry. Or to face LeBron in the playoffs during his prime years in the East. Just look at guys like DeRozan and Al Horford. They explain LeBron as unhuman-like. LeBron and the Cavs eliminated the Raptors 3 years in a row from 2016 to 18, and every year was more humiliating than the last. Or Al Horford explaining when he saw LeBron in Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals with just a couple minutes left in the game, and he said LeBron didn't even look tired when him and his team were exhausted. Al Horford described it as disturbing. All of these stories, Mario Chalmers still had the audacity to say nobody feared LeBron. Shame on you, Mario Chalmers. Our next player on this list, we got Michael Jordan. MJ, arguably the most intimidating player on this list, Jordan was an absolute animal on the court, and hearing NBA legends talk about what it was like to face Jordan, it seems like almost everyone feared him. Jordan would love to play little mind games to get under his opponent's skin, such as the time he shot a free throw with his eyes closed, and obviously he made it. Or that time he dunked on Mutombo and did his own finger wag to him. Shaq previously stated that when his Magic played the Bulls in 1993, he was terrified of Jordan. Not only because he was the best player in the world, but he was terrified he would get posterized by him. Even though Michael Jordan is arguably the most inspirational player to touch a basketball, there's no doubt he was also one of the most intimidating players as well, and he wasn't afraid to publicly humiliate you with his talent on the court. Next, we got Wilt Chamberlain. The great Wilt the Still. Wilt Chamberlain was not only one of the greatest and most intimidating players of all time, but he was also just one of the greatest athletes in the history of mankind. Wilt was 7'1", 275 pounds of pure muscle, and especially during the 1950s and 70s, there weren't many guys like him. Wilt was actually a nice guy from the sounds of other players who played with or against him, but what made him so intimidating was how unstoppable he was on the court. Wilt still holds the record for most points in a game with 100, and on the defensive end, he was arguably the best shot blocker of all time, and they didn't even count blocks during his time. Wilt was able to block shots as high as the backboard, and he was freakishly athletic, especially for his size. Players guarding Wilt felt helpless all the time, due to his strength, speed, and size on the defensive end, and the offensive end as well. Even though Wilt wasn't that intimidating as a person, he was arguably the most intimidating NBA player of all time with his unbelievable play on the court. Now our last player on this list, we got Shaquille O'Neal. Just like our previous entry, Wilt, Shaq was one of the strongest, if not the strongest player to play the game of basketball. Standing at 7'1" and around 300 pounds, Shaq was an absolute monster in the paint. The 15-time All-Star broke numerous rims with his strength, and this was after they fixed the problem in the early 1980s. But what made Shaq so intimidating was how helpless defenders were against him, as he was a monster underneath the basket. Shaq would post you up, posterize you, and then shove you to the ground like you're not in the same league as him. Shaq, just like Wilt, had a very simple game, but a very effective and intimidating one, as there was nobody to stop him from what they were able to do. Shaq also talked a bit of trash, but he wasn't the biggest trash talker, and his play on the court definitely struck more fear in his opponents than his words did. Shaq was one of the greatest and most intimidating big men to play the game of basketball, and takes home the well-deserved #1 spot on this list. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Drop a like and subscribe for more content just like this one, and leave a comment down below any other players you think should have made this list. Thank you guys, and I will see you in the next one.